Hi everyone! Do you know, I've always had a real soft spot for blush. I just think it's one of the easiest products to use. It's instant. Of course, I love the colours, I love the history of it, I love the formulations. And I thought for today I'd do something slightly different for our video. I'm going to show you 3 different blushes that I made from 3 different eras. So one from the 18th century, one from the Victorian era, and one from the 1920s. And the 1920s one is very much closer to what I guess normal powder blush is now. It's when they were starting to really expand all the colours and really the commercialisation of beauty. All of these clips are from my BBC documentary series Makeup: A Glamorous History, and this was all filmed during total lockdown in 2020, so it's actually a miracle that I managed to make all of this stuff and actually experiment with it, but I still absolutely love what we achieved with it, and I thought it would be a really fun video today. So starting with the Georgians, I hope you enjoy it.
In Georgian times, the high art of makeup was such an important symbol of wealth and status that in 1764, George III's wife, Queen Charlotte, was painted in front of her dressing table. It was seen as a fitting backdrop for the highest status lady in the country. Part of the trick to show you were a proper lady was a tendency to blush. And still today, there's nothing to compare to a well-blushed cheek. Luckily, the recipe books from the time offered plenty of formulas for rouge. I'm making one which uses 2 natural dyes, cochineal, which is derived from dried beetles, and Brazil wood. Just grinding them in to release the pigment. Right, now I'm going to mix these up with some vinegar. Pop it into the pan. And heat. This is exciting because I'm expecting a really vibrant colour. Already it's, wow. This is definitely more of an orangey red. It's a real firecracker of a colour. It's almost like chili. I think this one definitely you'd have to go sparingly with, but not the Georgians, obviously. More is more. Red pigment is the oldest makeup in existence. The ancient Egyptians mixed it with animal fat to tint the skin, and there are references in ancient Greek texts of women applying rouge to create a youthful flush, much as we do today. Okay, I think it's done. I'm going to switch the heat off. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to sieve it into this bowl. And I'm then going to tear off a strip of this, and this was known as Spanish wool. And you would tear off a strip, soak it in the mixture, and then leave it to dry out. And this was a way of having portable rouge. And this is actually how you would buy it as well from the pharmacy. So let's have a go. I'm going to use a muslin cloth. And such a good colour. Oh, I didn't get very much, but this colour is going to go a long way. So let me just soak some Spanish wool. Oh, wow. This is very cool. And now I'm going to apply it on my model, Queenie. I'm loving doing makeup with all these authentic formulas. It's just so interesting to see how they behave and how they would have actually achieved the effects that I'm seeing in the paintings. To get the authentic Georgian look, I'm applying some white makeup first. Right, onto the pièce de résistance, the Spanish wool. I need to wet this. Oh my God, this is perfect. So I'm going to apply this cheek in a Marie Antoinette style, and it's reported that she applied her rouge in huge, precise circles in a colour not far from scarlet. And on this cheek, I'm going to apply it in a more English style. Good colour though, and it's very subtle. England, France.
Now we're moving on to the Victorians, and things have clearly changed a lot.
I've been busy in the kitchen again. This time I have it ready to go. For most Victorian women, standing out wasn't an option. The consequences were far too horrific, so they had to apply their makeup covertly. So on to the main challenge of Victorian makeup, how to make blush not look like blush. I'm using Almond Bloom, a liquid rouge first sold by Pears. It's made using various natural red dyes mixed in water and then fixed with something called isinglass, a fish-based gelatin. I'm going to start with 1 drop because this is dangerous. According to one writer of the time, a violently rouged woman is one of the most disgusting objects to the eye. Oh, this is a dream. I think all Victorian women must have been wearing this because you cannot tell that's makeup. You'd be crazy not to. The biggest revolution in makeup happened in the Roaring '20s, when we cast off the puritanical reserve of the Victorians and the era of modern makeup was born. So we've gone from having 2 or 3 shades of rouge and lipstick to endless choice. And you're also seeing the beginning of sampling. So something like this, which is a rouge sample, and you actually buy the mini puff. It's very cheap and you can try out the colours. This one is an extraordinary, almost salmon pink colour. And it says that the puff will be sufficiently impregnated with the colour so that you can experience its marvellous colour effects. So you're able to try before you buy, which is a really new concept. At the start of the 1920s, it was still seen as daring to wear coloured cosmetics. Samples may have been new, but rouge has been around for millennia. Early formulations were made with natural dyes, but the 20th century saw the introduction of synthetic reds, which provided new explosions of colour. This 1934 book, Pharmaceutical Formulas, has pages of recipes for rouge. Sue's been hard at work preparing some choices for me. I'd love to try some of these mixtures that you've made. So you've followed the book and we've got 5 different colours and 1 base.
That's right. This is a carmine basis, so that is a pigment.
Yep.
And then we will blend this with the white basis, which is made from equal portions of kaolin and talc, and then we added just a tiny amount of titanium dioxide in, which is a white pigment.
The pigment, yeah. There's a really silly idea. There's lots of silly ideas about makeup around this time, but this one is about putting a really hot flannel on your cheeks, removing it, and then the colour that your cheeks have gone, that's the shade that you need to match your blush to. So in with the mirror. So talk amongst yourselves. Doesn't say how long for. What are you having for dinner tonight?
No idea, I haven't decided yet.
There we go. So that's my blush colour. So in that case, I think I'm just going to go for the basic carmine. Right, let's mix this up. Cosmetic companies were full of silly tricks like this. The book even suggests buying a different blush for different occasions. This genius upselling meant you might walk out of the shop with not 1 blush, but 2 or 3. There we go. That's a cute colour. I look like I've been out for a walk. Made everything just sparkle.
Yeah.
That's why we love blush and the power of makeup. Gorge. It's time to give Queenie some colour And now I have the luxury of choice. I brought a few concoctions that I made. I'm going to mix together 3 of these. I'm going to mix together the Carmesin base, the Rose Bengal basis and the Carmine basis. I'm going to mix those 3 and create what I think will be a really good shade to emphasise the smoky eyes. Oh, this is heavenly. I love this because it really makes the eye makeup pop. You have that wonderful contrast between the hot pink and the dark eyes. And it was very authentic to have this kind of high, flushed look. Oh, this looks divine. So there you have it, blush from 3 different eras. Let me know in the comments if you'd like more of this type of content, because as you know, I am obsessed with the history of makeup, so I can talk about this stuff for hours. And until then, take care, bye.